Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber.
I'm Jay Sticky.
And I'm Charlie Bradley.
Welcome, Charlie Bradley. You are here to talk with us about a thing we will get into after we can do the LessWrong posts, because we always do those first.
And now we're keeping you in suspense as to what the subject is.
Yes. It is not at all spicy, though.
I'm guessing because it doesn't summarize well, so I'm looking forward to it.
It does not summarize well.
Exactly.
Yeah. If we're going to get canceled, we're going to get canceled for our full argument.
In context.
Thing. Yes.
All right.
Cool. All right. So our first LessWrong post this week is Pascal's mugging, tiny probabilities of vast utilities. And this is another one of those classics, which actually this one isn't just a classic. It created a whole new, I hate to use the word meme because it doesn't mean what Dawkins originally intended anymore as an idea that replicates. And now it means mean jokes. God damn, it even sounds weird.
I've actually heard people using it much more in, well, I don't know. Then again, I'm in a rationalist bubble, so.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I think outside of that bubble, people have started, like, using the word meme correctly in some contexts.
Oh, cool. But this created the concept of Pascal's mugging, which is now spread through the wider society, and I have heard it used in like science programs and news programs by people who are definitely not in the rationalist community. I'm not sure if they're familiar with it, though. They might already be familiar, or they might have just picked it up through cultural osmosis. I found it really cool the first time. I think it was like 5 years ago when I heard it just used out in broader society, and I was like, whoa,
Rationalist
some
stuff
penetration.
is starting to get out there. A friend of mine found some, like, interviews with Eliezer Yudkowsky on this channel that was just about conspiracy theories, but, like, we, like, looked up the YouTuber, and it doesn't look like he's in the community.
What was the conspiracy theory that they were talking about?
I was actually just trying to remember that, and I was like, oh no, it was Rocco's basilisk.
Oh,
I'm sorry to the whole rationalist community for reminding you that that happened.
I don't know why anyone is worried, like it's a thing that happened, whatever.
I saw on our Discord, someone snapped a picture of one of those microbreweries where, you know, they make their own beers and name them and stuff. And there's a different one every month. And so they write them up on the menu with chalk.
Please tell me there was a Rocco's basilisk.
Uh-huh. There was a Rocco's basilisk brew.
What kind of beer was it?
Oh, fuck, I don't know, man.
Oh.
Probably an IPA, because microbreweries tend to love IPAs for some reason.
I was trying to think of a pun, but I don't know enough about beer to make a joke about it.
Yeah.
The kind that you will regret not ordering. There you go. Yeah,
okay.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no good.
Anyways.
And maybe I deserve to be Pascal's mugged. Because we haven't explained
Doesn't even make sense.
Exactly. We haven't talked about Pascal's mugging yet. What does it even mean, man?
Okay, so Pascal's mugging starts out by describing a large number, 3 to the third, using a certain type of up arrow notation. Basically, it's a very big number. It is very easy to describe because he did it with 5 characters, and the Turing machine can compute it pretty easily. But even writing it out in base 10 would require enormously more writing materials than there are atoms in the known universe, which is a paltry 10 to the 80th. And there's a whole bunch of math, you know, about like how big this number is to help you visualize it. But, you know, it's very mathy, and it's still very hard to visualize. Just anytime you say more than there are atoms in the universe, I get an idea that's a pretty big number. And
like, since I can't even get a good, like, I don't know, I have nothing in my brain to equate that number to, I just say big. Like I put a couple of varies before that, but yeah. I don't really care.
More varies though than there are.
Yeah, I don't really
atoms.
care how big it is, because it's just like, okay, very large, you got it.
Yeah.
I like how he's in the thing. It was like, consider Knuth's UTH's up arrow notation, and I just sent you the picture of Captain America. No, I don't think I will. And I'm like, no, skipping the math part. I know I already know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
There's a really cool visualization that I remember we did in kindergarten or first grade, where remember when printers always had like, what the hell was it? The dots, the holes in the side.
Yeah.
So they could like, I think it was so they could spool it, but anyway.
They would feed it through the printer using those.
Yeah. So we, for the entire year, tore the little holes off of all the printer paper and had the kids like break them into 10 and then bind 10 together and then bind 10 of those together. And we got
really
to
cool.
1 million holes.
Wow,
and
damn.
It was just like trash bags and trash bags full of those like bounded up tiny holes.
Yeah.
There's a joke in there. That's a lot of holes.
It's impressive that you got to 1 million, though.
Well, it was called the Million Project, so that was our goal.
Okay. It is surprising
I think
how
there was like kids like bringing the holes from like printer paper at home if they had computers, which only half of the kids had computers at home because I'm old. I was one of the families that did not have a computer.
So,
But
what is Pascal's mugging? What is a Turing machine? I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
A Turing machine is basically the basic theoretical components of a computer.
we should really have Charlie on more often. Because how often do we just say a thing and not explain what it is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Every
Like,
time.
Sorry.
I mean, at this point, we're at how many? Well over 100 episodes, right?
Yeah.
And I know we discussed a Turing machine at one point.
Did we? I don't remember having done so.
Well, we're discussing inferential distance on the next post, so that'll give us a great opportunity to explain why we're not explaining our terms. But
yeah, it's 130. This is our 137th episode. I know we talked about Turing machines at one point.
I'm sure we had to.
Yeah.
Maybe it was before I was on the podcast. 'cause I
So
don't
if
remember.
everybody goes back and listens to the previous 135 episodes of about 1.5 to 2 hours each, eventually you'll find a Turing machine description in there. But
Or Wikipedia and read the first paragraph. That said, I don't remember anything we've ever talked about in the show, so
who are you?
yeah. All right. So the Pascal's mugging, Pascal's wager is the formulation of the popular concept. Sorry, I'm running on
Popular a long time ago.
I'm running on bad sleep and what do you call it? Stimulants, caffeine and stuff. So this will be a fun conversation.
Do you want any alpha?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
At 1 in the afternoon? No way.
Oh, I don't know. Usually only lasts about 6 hours.
I don't know. In any case, most people are familiar with Pascal's wager, even if they haven't heard it formalized with that name. It's like the short version. Oh, you should believe in. It's in the context of religious arguments. You should believe in God because it doesn't cost you that much or nothing, and the payoff is huge.
Yeah.
So
And this was a philosopher or
Blaise Pascal,
was he a theologian? Or...
mathematician, actually.
He was a mathematician. Okay.
Yeah, one of those crazy God-believing mathematicians, which actually weren't that uncommon since
I think God belief was like the default at the time.
Well, not only was it the default, like mathematicians in particular tended to be more theistic than other scientists since they dealt much more in these very abstract kind of realms rather
Really?
than empirical stuff.
Huh.
we're getting distracted again.
We are sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So that's Pascal's wager. Pascal's mugging.
Right, like
is-
if you believe you've so what was it? If you don't believe, you gain a little bit in life, and when
You get to be
die,
more hedonistic, and you get your Sunday mornings to yourself.
Yeah, you gain just a little bit in life. If you die and there's no God, well, you didn't win anything. But if there die and there is a God, you go to hell and you've lost everything forever. On the other hand, if you're a Christian and you lose your Sundays, you pay a little bit of cost. If you die, there's no God. Oh well, you're dead. You lost those days on Sundays. But if there is a God, you go to heaven and everything's wonderful forever. So, due to the fact that it's just a small cost in life for ginormous payouts in the afterlife, you should totally believe in God.
It's basically cryonics.
Well, yes and no.
with better probability distribution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's cryonics with non-zero probability.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the
cryonics, I guess, would be the other way with non-zero. Yeah.
right. So that's the pitch I give for cryonics. Except you assign basic non-zero probabilities to these things involved.
Yeah.
It's a really good argument
Yeah.
when you can put numbers into it.
Yeah. When you're not bullshitting and saying it's nothing or it's infinite or whatever, then it's you can actually
So like
do a calculation to determine whether or not it's worth it for you.
Yeah. It's how many dollars per month and what are the chances?
Right.
Yeah.
the obvious answer though was always in my understanding, but like okay, but what about the probability that your religion is wrong and that one of these other ones is correct?
Yeah.
Then you're still better buying a lotto ticket than not buying one at all is the standard rebuttal. But
But that's
Then-
wrong.
But
You're
some
better
of
not
them are
buying
mutually
lotto
like
tickets.
incompatible. Like if you can't, I don't think, be both a Buddhist and an Muslim.
so that's why you pick the most vindictive God, because he's the one who's the least likely to forgive you for choosing the wrong one. Like Buddha would probably be fine with it, if you're just a good person. No, I'm serious. This is how the argument ends. But then
Buddha is not a god.
the unfortunate end of the unfortunate conclusion of that is that when you pick the most vindictive God to worship for your life, that doesn't come at the very small cost as advertised at the beginning of the pamphlet.
Right.
It comes at a huge cost.
Yeah. You got to start going around killing all the
Compare all the world
disbelievers.
religions.
Yeah, you've got to go to the most extreme because that's the God who would be most likely to punish you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pascal's mugging is
When you get mugged by a mathematician
basically
named Pascal.
It's someone saying, "Give me $5, or I'll use my magic powers from outside the Matrix to run a Turing machine that simulates and kills 3 3 people."
can we just say a lot?
A lot. Well,
Yeah.
I also want to throw in that he added in one more up notation than there was before. So that number before, where there were already you couldn't put enough zeros on a piece of paper if you had all the materials in the universe to write it out. This number is like
It's
exponentially
infinitely
bigger than that, like hugely bigger than that. So it's an extremely large number of people that are going to be tortured and murdered to the point where, like, I don't know, you would need more neurons than there are atoms in the universe to even comprehend this number or some shit.
I'm sure. Yeah, some giant number.
Yeah.
And so basically it's the inverse of a Pascal's wager, and the question is like, well,
just Pascal's wager to tell you can up to 11, really.
Yeah, I
Here's
suppose.
an almost no cost, $5, and here's the most extreme
Yeah,
possible. Yeah,
fair enough. I to me, what's interesting is, I mean, and maybe I'm just a bad rationalist, or I don't, find this argument compelling, but I've never really been.
Oh, no human finds it compelling.
I suppose, but like, well, the post is him wondering, like, am I failing as a good thinker to not be concerned about this sort of thing?
Well, he does say that
because
at
a
the
robot
end.
wouldn't or would find it compelling, or likely would if if it was just based off of.
I mean, this
like-
also makes me think of just shoot, what's the thing where like scope insensitivity? I wonder that same thing about like, am I a bad person for caring more about my family members and friends than people dying in some, other country that I don't know, that I've never met,
All right.
never seen.
This is like scope insensitivity, like with really bad eyesight and much bigger numbers, right? Because it's like you can't, I mean, would you give $100 to your sibling who really need $100, or would you give it to save everybody on the continent of Asia, right?
Nobody would call you a bad person if you gave it to your sibling, because we humans understand that, like, okay, there's certain ways that, like, the way that we think makes us human.
Wait a minute.
Let me
Nobody would call you a bad person for giving a piece of gum to your brother instead of
A piece of gum.
saving all the people in Asia?
I think I said $100, but
Oh, $100?
in any
Okay,
case,
whatever.
felt
I
like
meant it as an
that it was the
explicit.
$100 either goes to your sibling who needs it, or you give it to charity.
Right. So I actually meant it in the sense of everyone in Asia will die if you don't give them the $100 instead.
okay.
But yeah, so you're right. But most of us understand on the just how big your care network is, that how humans are wired. We're closer to the people next to us.
Like we can forgive ourselves for being mere humans,
Right.
in most of those cases.
I
But in this
but
I
it-
still
case,
have
but
a hard time with that.
in the
I kinda
context
hate it.
in the context of like if everyone was going to die and if 2 billion people were going to die, then you'd be a monster for not doing it.
Like, people keep saying whenever the Charlie experiment comes up that, they'd save the one person that is close to them rather than letting the 5 people die. And I don't know what I would do in that case. At least for me, it's not the obvious given that I would save the one person I love.
I'll try not to fall on any train tracks near you.
Please don't. I mean, I don't know.
Friends
Like,
don't
I
let
might,
friends
but I
play
just
with
can't
trolleys.
say it with like certainty. And I keep having issues with the fact that so many people just easily will say I saved the one.
I donate money to charity to people that I have no idea who they are, where precisely they live, and I don't give monthly money to people I know.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, I don't think it's like impossible to imagine that people do it the other way around. It's just like more
but
common.
like, what if your sibling was in the hospital and needed money to pay the bill, and you were like, "Sorry, I have this $100, but I've like dedicated, myself to sending it to charity each month."
Sure.
Yeah, I'm giving it to my sibling.
Yeah, that's where I think people would call you a bad person. Like,
Really?
or
That they would that
well, the thing is, if you have the money, and then like, I don't know, socially, I think that would be really awkward, right?
if I only
Like,
have the
what would your
$100.
parents? What would your parents think? Well, the thing is that like you have an extra $100, and you refuse to give it to the sibling because you say, no, I always give $100 to charity. So like you can find your own money.
I mean, it depends on the sibling, honestly. There's one particular sibling where I'm like, no, you should have the $100, you wanker. But for some of my other siblings, I'd be like, yeah, the charity's just gonna miss out on this $100 this month because you're in the hospital.
Well, and like people spend large sums of money up to and including their entire life savings, prolonging their life for like 2 more years at the end of life, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
When you're 90, trying to hit 92 or something.
Mm.
That in any case, we're getting kind of far
We're
afield.
getting way afield. So the
I
thing
feel like it's still related, actually, but
I think the thing that's important here is the sentence, suppose I build an AI. And he goes on with like, suppose I build AI that work on some bounded analog. But the thing is, Eliezer, at the time of writing this, and to this day, as far as I know, is attempting to build a machine intelligence, which could theoretically, based on what you know, maybe take over the world. Or if nothing
he was
else, have
trying to come up with
extreme
a-
impacts.
friendly AI theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't know if he's trying to build the mind, but he's trying to
Well, yes.
solve the problems that building a mind will create.
Yeah, the whole blog is in the purpose of creating an AI that will not destroy humanity if it were to be built, and that the Pascal's mugging is a real problem, because if you're a machine mind that works on probabilities and you know, theorems like this that work on numbers, and someone gives you that sort of a mugging threat, like, no matter how low you put the possibility that they are telling you the truth, that they're actually, you know, a Dark Lord of the Matrix that's going to do this, it still basically adds up to that huge number.
Since 0 isn't a probability,
Right.
then the chance that this could happen
Yeah.
is worth $5.
No matter how arbitrarily small the chance is, as long as it's not 0, the huge amount of suffering that you're going to save is worth it.
If you're a mindless robot following just pure math.
Well, no,
That's
you're
it.
a very smart robot with a personality, but that thinks on math.
Well, that's kind of us minus the thinking on math part.
Right.
But I mean, I'm inclined just to say, nah, you're a charlatan, get out of here. But to me, it's fun. This is almost like, you know, this is the kind of like philosophical, whatever, mental masturbation that I enjoy, but I don't think really does anything.
Well, I
But-
think it's important if you're making a machine mind.
Right. But since I'm not losing sleep over it. You know, like if someone, the problem is like the probability is so small of this person being a Dark Lord of the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
But like if I would said, hey man, if you give me $1,000, I will put I will distribute it across a bunch of cryptos that I think might blow up, and in 5 years you might be a millionaire. And in exchange, I'll keep $50 of it. You know, like to you that might not be worth the risk of losing all that money, right? Because the odds are all small. But those are actually like boundedly small, like possible to think of numbers, right? You can say I assign a 1 in 10,000 chance to any of these working or something.
Yeah.
Not a 1 in 10 to the negative 23rd probability, right?
Yeah. Well, it also brings up, you know, part of the problem is, what if the thing that the AI is asked to give up for these theoretical people isn't $5? It's the fate of the Earth itself.
Right.
Because just the Earth is really infinitesimal compared to all these however many uncountable number of people. So, you know, what's the sacrifice of one Earth for a chance to save that many people?
Yeah, it says a mind that works strictly by Solomonoff induction would not know how to rationalize reasons that Pascal's mugging mattered less than Earth's existence. How should an Occam-abiding mind avoid being dominated by tiny probabilities of vast utilities?
Yeah.
So there is a point.
Yes. And one of the interesting things about the post is that he doesn't have an answer. He's just like, so how do we fix this problem? Guys, anyone? Because this is a problem. And then he says, like, do I have an instinct to resist exploitation by arguments anyone could make? Am I unsatisfied by any visualizations in which the dominant mainline probability leads to a loss? Do I drop sufficiently small probabilities from consideration entirely? Like, he's trying to figure out why do I ignore this probability, and how can I generalize that to an AI so it also makes what I consider the correct decision without fucking over all the programming and ruining everything we've been trying to do to make this AI work in the first place.
Yeah, that is a fun question. It does end on a good point like that.
Yeah.
And I skimmed the comments. It's funny because there were some negatively voted ones, which you don't see that often. I didn't pull any out, so.
Yeah.
But if you're curious, go read the comments.
Yeah. And he does ask at the very end, like you said, Stephen, is it me that's wrong? Should I not be ignoring this tiny possibility?
I mean, it's hard to know how you could possibly operate your life that way.
Right.
Right? I mean, you couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I was trying to bring up about scope insensitivity, like, or trolley problems. Like,
I think, like, if you
I think
can't...
you can live your life that way, but, like, I think it's the reason that effective altruism is unpopular with, like, people that aren't in the rationalist community, because it feels cold and robotic.
But it's like, all I have to do to get you to be Pascal's mugged is tell you that, like, oh, your car doesn't really run on gas. It runs on destroying souls of angels or something. and they are a billion times as sentient as you are, and it's actually a really bad thing. Like, that's the level of absurdity that's involved here, right? It's not merely like, you know, if you're throwing money at charity to save lives, you're actually saving lives of actual people that you could, in theory, meet. You know, I'm not making shit up to extort you to never drive your car or something, right? Like, when I get in my car, I don't do a 60-point inspection on it every time I start it, and I don't even open the hood to see if there's like an animal sleeping in the engine, right? Or like on top of the engine where it's warm. Like, I should, because I care about animals. I've seen pictures of raccoons and cats and stuff under there.
But you can live your whole life, like,
I will almost certainly live my whole life without an animal ever being under there, right? But there's a non-negligible chance, and that's not even approaching the infinitesimal probability of a Pascal's mugging.
Well, generally the animal would get off the engine block before it got hot
No.
enough to hurt it, right?
Or like it
No,
could
animals
get
die
caught in
this
a
way all
belt
the
or something
time.
and
Yeah.
ripped apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
It's
could
so
go
sad.
could go south, but it almost so closely never happens that I don't lose any sleep over it. To the point where I don't spend 3 seconds or maybe 30 seconds checking my car before I leave
Yeah.
every day.
Like you can't live your life trying to protect yourself from every possibility of something killing you.
And that's every like real possibility like that actually happens. But so the mugging thing is so ridiculously unlikely that how could you possibly operate that way, right? You'd be forced to give everyone who asked you $10 or however much, right? To give them both your kidneys and sell your family and harvest their organs. Like if you really believed any of this, you'd just be this absurd. There's a movie I'm sure where was it Yes Man or something where like they have to agree to say yes to everything for a day.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
was that Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
It sounds like Jim Carrey because he also got cursed with not being able to lie for a day and liar liar.
That one was a really good one.
yeah.
Was Yes
I
Man
love
good?
Jim Carrey.
It was.
Okay. I should see that too.
But in any case, no one took advantage of him enough that day to totally ruin his life because it's like, hey,
I think because they didn't know he had the curse.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I haven't seen the movie. If someone found out, be like, hey, can I have all your money and while I'm at it, all your family's money and all their organs? Like, what is he just supposed to say yes? So that would be you if you operated this way.
Yeah.
So I just say, nah, fuck it, not worried about it. Somehow I'll just I'll meh that problem away. That's my level of coherent dismissal of it. I think
we need to program AIs with a meh function.
I mean, and that meh function could say anything that's I don't know under 1 in 10 billion times 1 in 10 billion odds or something, right? You could throw a hard number at it.
I don't think you should necessarily throw a hard number. Maybe something that is theoretically impossible to verify.
Or like
if
yeah.
you can't. If this guy is not giving you any evidence that he's a Dark Lord of the Matrix, just
I don't
assume he's lying.
I don't think we'll solve the problem of how to train an AI safely to handle this problem.
No,
in
not
the
here in
next
this
Hey,
podcast.
I
next
agree.
minutes.
I think what they're doing at Miri is trying to deconstruct sort of how we got our own values in the first place.
Yeah, and it's possible
Because we
that
do
our
also think on math, just way like further down.
Much fuzzier.
yeah, and I think that not just values but also like the intuitions we have. Again, we're not
Like sort of
susceptible to Pascal's muggings.
the obvious thing that we have is that we're like a communal species, a social species. So we put like higher weight on the things that we value, which are like tends to be other people. We'd have to make an AI that's capable of like altruism or empathy or whatever the thing that humans have that make us care about that.
I recently heard a cool argument that really we can think of our minds as extending to all the people around us as well, because we store a lot of our knowledge in other people's brains.
Mhm.
If we don't necessarily know something, we're like,
Yeah,
hey,
we're
you
kind of one
remind me of that
organism.
thing, or I don't necessarily need to know how to do my plumbing because I know someone else who does know how to do plumbing, and yeah.
We would never have gone beyond the hunter-gatherer stage if we weren't able to sort of collectively store memory and pass it down through generations.
It's good shit. Speaking of storing memory and passing it down, should we go on to the next?
Totally.
Okay. The next post is Illusion of Transparency, Why No One Understands You. Anyone want to jump on this, or should I start it?
We always know what we mean by our words, so we expect others to know it too.
And that is basically the entirety of of the post in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's funny because it's that sounds like obvious and almost to the point of like tautological, right? Like I assume that y'all know what I meant when I used that last sentence, right?
Yes.
Because I knew what I meant when I said it, and even if I stumbled through it or mispronounced a word, I still know what I meant, and I assume that you do too. This turns out to be an actual problem when communicating anything. And he describes a fun experiment that's actually worth maybe touching on. But
Several fun experiments, yeah.
yeah, I found that one of the answering machine message like the most fun there.
Oh, you did?
Because it had the funniest wrinkles in it to me.
Okay, to
but-
me that was the most suspect, but go ahead and describe it real quick, or should I? Or
Yeah, so June gives Mark a recommendation for a restaurant. Mark goes there and has one of two experiences: is either terrible and the service was sucky, or it was great and the service was great. He calls her and leaves a voicemail message saying, "I'm trying to
it
remember
was
the exact words."
marvelous,
Yeah.
just marvelous.
Exactly. And depending on how they talk, I'm assuming you have to take this within the bounds of like the normal way of speaking, right? If I never use the word marvelous to describe something if I was describing a food place to you, so you'd think I'm being funny probably.
Right.
But if we usually talk that way, so I'm assuming that
If
like
you said marvelous, I would think you were being sarcastic because
Right.
it's not something you would say.
exactly. So let's just assume that
Let's pretend Steven's a theater nerd.
that's
super dramatic.
that's within the that's within the range of how they usually communicate. So if he had a good time, or rather, if you ask people, okay, Mark had a bad time, he left this voicemail, how will June interpret it? Some high percent, the majority of people will say, did I say good time the first time I said this?
No, he had a bad time.
So if he had a bad time and he left this voicemail and you ask people, will June get that he was being sarcastic? Most people think yes. And if you say he had a good time and he left this voicemail, what will June get? She'll like, oh, he'll think he's sincere. But it's the same voicemail.
Yeah, they played the same one.
And they don't, and June doesn't know how Mark actually had the experience, right? And what's funny too is that if
when they say he had a bad experience, but he's lying to June and wants her to think it was a good experience, they assume that June thinks that he had a good experience.
And there's no reason to think I think I've referenced this at least twice before on the podcast, but if you YouTube Key and Peele text message,
Oh, that's a good one.
It's brilliant.
it's this exact problem.
Noticed,
And
but
I mean, it's a obviously written to comedic effect, but like there's no reason to think that she would get the two layers that you're doing through the deception of trying to be funny and whatever, be sarcastic or be joking, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that not only does Mark assume that Jane will get the right message or not if he's trying to subvert the expectation, but that other people also assume that, that's the funny and insane part. Yeah.
so we're much worse at this when we're little. I find this really hilarious. Like, there's a test that you can do to see if a child has learned theory of mind yet or not, and it's the one where you show the kid a video of this kid has a ball, the kid puts the ball in a box, another kid comes and takes the ball out of the box, and then the first kid comes back, and you ask the child, like, where does this kid think the ball is? And because they saw the other kid take it out of the box, they're like, oh, he'll come back and he'll know that, like, Jeffrey over there has it, if they don't have theory of mind. But, like, if they do, they'll be like, I realize that the fact that I know that Jeffrey took the ball doesn't mean that Jimmy knows that Jeffrey took the ball.
So he'll think it's still in the box.
And this is a very hard thing for children to do. But we're still not good at it as adults. Like, I sort of think it's interesting that there's one test that you can do that shows that, but
See, I didn't.
but I've definitely met adults that are much better and worse at this. And I don't know what really like causes you to be better or worse at it.
I didn't think that the answering machine test was like a great one because I kind of figured maybe the people thought that just Mark and June know each other and have their own thing. Like, we don't use marvelous, but maybe the people assumed that he would, or they just assumed that Mark's a good liar when, he was trying to lie to her about how it was a good time.
That was my thought too. Was like, of course, people thought if he was trying to fool her, he would be more successful because they have a relationship. So he knows how to phrase something so that she would be misinformed.
That's valid. I
That's
think to me what was fun was that people, without knowing how Mark actually, if he enjoyed the restaurant or not, they would assume that Jane understood the exact same message the right way, right?
If they know each other, he should be able to somewhat be able to convey that, which is I think what people are
Assuming
going
he
with.
was
Okay,
trying
yeah.
to. Then.
That's
That
why I
makes
didn't like
sense.
that example as
Okay.
much.
No, that's totally fair.
Well,
But
what
they
about,
had two other examples which were much more interesting.
Which one did you like?
So I like the goose hangs high one.
I like that one too.
Yeah, it's an old expression which no one uses anymore.
Oh, is that a real expression?
I don't know. Apparently they were told that it's a real expression in the past.
Okay.
And I don't know if it actually was or not.
The goose hangs high is an excellent expression, and we should bring it back.
Yes.
Except first we have to find out which thing it means.
Well, the subjects were told either it means the future looks great or the future looks gloomy. And regardless of what they were told, when they were asked, what do you think someone who just heard the goose hangs high in a conversation would think it means, they generally always thought they would mean whatever they were told. So if they were told the future looks gloomy and they were asked, hey, what do you think someone who just heard this expression would think it means? They're like, oh yeah, they probably think it means it's gloomy because
Because obviously.
yeah, duh.
Everyone knows that.
And yeah, and the other way around, which was a much more interesting experiment in my opinion.
Apparently, it does actually mean it's an old-fashioned things are or will be very pleasant, desirable, or merry. Everything is looking up.
Okay. So everybody on the podcast, let's bring it back. The goose hangs high.
All right.
How's your goose?
It's hanging high, man. Sounds vaguely sexual.
See,
Yeah.
It really does.
but see, for all you guys know, I inverted the definition I just found.
You son of a bitch. It's okay.
You don't actually know if I did that or not, right?
I don't know.
So, but the thing that was the thing is that if that's the point of the experiment here is that if you told people it meant one thing, they would just believe it and think it's obvious to everyone else.
Well, I wouldn't think it's obvious, but
well,
I mean, I believed
like a
you
part
because
of
I
you would
think you're
think
not a
that.
dirty liar.
They thought listeners would perceive the meaning presented as standard.
If you know something, then you just tend to think that it's obvious to others.
That's the illusion of transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's just being bad at like the
I thought
theory of mind thing.
the really interesting example is at the end where it says 2 days before Germany's attack on Poland in World War II, Chamberlain sent a letter intended to make it clear that Britain would fight if any invasion occurred. The letter, phrased in polite diplomatese, was heard by Hitler as conciliatory, and the tanks rolled in.
That's why you don't fuck around when you're writing letters about war.
Yeah.
And you include the words, "I'm not fucking around. This aggression will not stand, man."
Nice. Yeah, so that was basically it. Don't be too quick to blame those who misunderstood your perfectly clear sentences, because they're never all that clear.
There was another experiment that wasn't in this post where people would tap a song that's in their head, whether it's Happy
yeah.
Birthday or some other popular song.
I've tested this on people. Tapping Happy Birthday, nobody can hear it.
But
And
when
it sounds insane from your own perspective. Try it.
I know, right? It's great because and people would assume with astonishingly high accuracy. I can't remember what it was. It was, I want to say 70+%, maybe 80 or 90. But the majority of people assumed that, oh, I'm doing a popular song. The person who's listening to me tap will totally know what song I'm doing. I'm really confident. And they never did, or almost never did.
Yeah.
And that's just the illusion of transparency. Well, it's clear to me what I'm doing. How is it not clear to you? Yeah.
Huh. Well, that is sort of a way that you can test this, I guess.
Yeah, it's a nice at-home test it yourself. And
Not just test it yourself, but make it really salient with personal experience.
I was just thinking about, like, I've run into cases where I've tried to explain to people that, like, I can't read your mind. And they're like, well, how could you not know? And this would be a good example to bring up, like, okay, what song is this? That's Happy Birthday.
because we primed Happy Birthday, I actually
Yeah.
knew that one. But yeah.
I was at Walmart and I was getting boxes for my upcoming move. And I noticed that a lot of the boxes they had out said, for reuse, each box costs the company $1. And then there were boxes that did not say that. So I walk up to an employee and there's a big cart of unmarked boxes. And then there's a different cart with the marked boxes. And I said, is it all right with you if I take the unmarked boxes with me? And they look at me and they're like, no, you can't have the marked boxes. And there's like this 2-minute excited explanation of why I can't have those. And I let her finish. And then I pointed at the unmarked and I said, unmarked boxes, the ones that do not say that I cannot have them. And she goes, oh yeah, fine.
She's probably had to tell people that so many times that it's just like a script that she's primed for.
But that was an example where I was using very clear language. We both spoke the same language. The boxes were there for reference, but I still failed to come across. I needed to point at the boxes as well.
I'm curious, how different were the unmarked boxes from the marked ones in terms of like physical dimensions and all that?
Very different.
Okay. So they probably were just going to throw out the unmarked ones?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I was thinking, did they just forget to mark those? And you
Nope.
got a whole bunch of $1 boxes
They're all
off them?
incredibly clear
Okay.
and very different. But I thought this was perfect for this discussion where I was just like, could I have phrased that better? Probably not. Perhaps I should have
Could I have been more
pointed
clear?
the first time I said it to add even more information to what I was conveying.
It's a thing that comes up fairly often when you're trying to write fiction too.
It's really good sometimes to over-explain. Or to default to over-explaining.
Yeah. So the moral here is be not too quick to blame those for misunderstanding your perfectly clear sentences, spoken or written. Chances are your words are more ambiguous than you think. Now, that's just chances. Sometimes you're perfectly clear and they just don't understand you, like with the box thing. But the moral is that if someone, and this actually, I don't know if I started doing this before or after I read this post, because I read this first 10-something years ago. But, I, especially with people close to me, if like we're having a conversation, I'm like, all right, if I say something that is offensive or rude, can you ask me to clarify that? Because I almost certainly didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
And, good friends, good dialogue partners will understand that. And it seldom has come to occasion where they need to point that out. But when it does, we get to skip the whole part where they think I'm being an asshole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
This, like, you said it was like 10 years ago you read this, probably the same for me. I actually distinctly remember this sequence post making me a better person.
Oh.
Because it makes you so much more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, that's awesome.
And also, like, doing things like, actually just, like, asking someone to rephrase something is something I've, to this day, like, done a lot. When I jump to some conclusion, I'm about to start, like, fighting them about it, or also just, I've stopped doing the thing of, like, I don't know if everyone does this, but when someone would say something I didn't understand, I used to kind of nod because it would be impolite to sort of interrupt them and be like, wait, like,
And
I don't know what Solomonov induction is or whatever, but, like...
And now do you ask for clarification more often?
all the time, and, like, it's made conversations so much better.
Excellent. All right, well, for next time, we are going to be discussing the posts, self-anchoring, and I gotta ask you guys about this. Expecting short inferential differences is the one after self-anchoring. Didn't we already?
Distances.
Did I not say distances?
Differences, I think.
Oh, sorry, distances. Didn't we already do an entire episode about this? I tried to search our archives, but I didn't find anything.
I don't remember.
We've definitely talked about it, but we can summarize it
It
quickly.
sounds like probably one of the ones you would have done before I was on,
Okay.
since your early episodes were more sort of like explaining rationalists.
There's also the wrinkle in your brain that you've recorded a handful of these over the last 5 years in audio form.
Oh, maybe this was one of the ones that I was asked
You definitely spoke this one.
I did.
I remembered in your voice.
Okay. Well, expecting short. Yeah. Okay, yeah. This was one I read just out loud for the HP Memoir podcast back when we were in the middle of waiting for updates. So yeah, we have not discussed this on the show. So we will also be doing expecting short inferential distances as the other one, which is again a classic. We're hitting a lot of classics here.
And if you'd like a refresher before next episode, you can hear it in Inyash's voice.
Yes, you can.
Where is it, Inyash?
It's at the HP Memoir podcast, and I will add a link to the show notes at thebasingconspiracy.com.
Twite.